For centuries, the galactic concordance had thrived under the stewardship of a race so ancient, so wise, that their decrees were law across the stars. The Elders, as they were called, had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, the birth and death of empires, and the ebb and flow of cosmic power. They were not like other species, their technology was beyond comprehension, their minds vast and unfathomable, their lifespans measured in millennia. The universe was their domain, and they maintained peace by laying down the laws that govern the countless species under their watch. Of all the decrees they issued, one stood as the most important, the most sacred. It was a rule, simple yet unyielding: never challenge humanity. For countless cycles, the rule had held true. No empire had dared to defy it. No species had ignored the warnings. There was something about humanity, something unpredictable, something wild and untamable, that terrified even the oldest of the Elders. It was not because humans were the most powerful, nor the most technologically advanced, nor the most intelligent. They were none of these things. But they had something none of the other species had: resilience. Humanity did not just survive wars, they adapted to them. Every loss, every hardship, only made them stronger. And that made them a threat. A threat the Elders knew to respect. But not everyone shared the Elders' caution. There were younger empires, hungry for power, eager to make their mark in the galaxy. To them, the Elders' warnings seemed outdated, a relic of a bygone age. They viewed humanity as primitive, backward even. To them, humans were nothing more than a small, insignificant species on a single planet, without the technology, the power, or the ambition to pose any real threat. One such empire was the dominion of Zeldar, a ruthless reptilian race that had carved a bloody path through the stars. The Zeldar were an ancient warrior species, bred for conquest. Their technology was centuries ahead of humanity's, their soldiers physically superior, and their fleets vast and nearly unbeatable. The Dominion had crushed countless civilizations, leaving behind nothing but ruin in their wake. The Zeldar's military was their pride, their heart and soul. They believed nothing could stand against them. When the Zeldar High Command set its sights on Earth, they saw it as nothing more than an opportunity to expand their empire. To them, humanity was just another weak species to be conquered and absorbed. They had no respect for the Elders' warning, no fear of the consequences. The idea that humans could present any serious challenge to the Dominion seemed absurd. And so, the invasion began. The Zeldar fleet descended upon Earth, their warships cutting through the atmosphere with ease. They unleashed their devastating weapons, obliterating Earth's defenses in mere hours. Humanity's greatest military forces, advanced though they were no match for the Dominion's power. Major cities fell. Humanity's resistance seemed futile. The world was on the brink of annihilation. The news of Earth's fall spread quickly through the galaxy, and for the first time in centuries, the galactic concordance seemed to tremble. The Zeldar, once unstoppable, were about to add another world to their empire. The humans, it seemed, had no chance. But the Dominion had underestimated one thing: humanity's sheer will to survive. As the Zeldar pressed their attack, something strange began to happen. The human resistance didn't crumble. It didn't falter. Instead, it grew. What the Zeldar didn't understand was that humanity was not like the other species they had conquered. Humans didn't give up when they were outmatched. They didn't surrender when the odds were stacked against them. Instead, they adapted. They learned. They fought not just with weapons, but with ingenuity. On the ground, human soldiers refused to retreat. They fought in the ruins of their cities, using whatever they could find to hold off the superior Zeldar forces. Against all logic, against all reason, they fought back. In space, humanity's fleets, though outnumbered and outgunned, began to employ tactics no one expected. They used guerrilla tactics, using their smaller, more agile ships to outmaneuver the massive Zeldar warships. They hacked into the Dominion systems, causing disruptions and chaos within their own fleets. The Zeldar were used to fighting battles with overwhelming force, not with cunning and adaptability. They had underestimated humanity's creativity, and that mistake would cost them dearly. The Zeldar had brought advanced AI systems to control their fleets, believing that their technology was invincible. But they didn't account for the fact that humanity had been working on their own cyber warfare tactics for decades. Human hackers, using skills honed in their own wars and conflicts, infiltrated the Dominion's fleet networks. They turned the Zeldar's own AI systems against them, causing their ships to malfunction, turn on each other, and even self-destruct. It was a tactic the Dominion hadn't seen before, and it threw their military command into disarray. On the biological front, the Zeldar had unleashed their most deadly weapon, genetically engineered viruses designed to wipe out humanity. But what the Dominion didn't realize was that humanity was no stranger to biological warfare. Human scientists, working at breakneck speed, managed to reverse engineer the virus and develop immunity. Even more impressively, they used their own biology to turn the virus back on the Zeldar. The very weapon meant to decimate humanity became their downfall. As the war raged on, the Zeldar began to realize something terrifying. The humans they had underestimated were not just fighting back, they were adapting faster than the Dominion could respond. Every new weapon, every new strategy, was countered almost immediately. The Zeldar had come to Earth expecting an easy victory, but they were met with a species that refused to bend, refused to break. And that was something the Dominion had never experienced before. It was at this point, when the Zeldar's forces were beginning to fracture, that whispers of fear began to spread within their ranks. Could it be that the Elders were right? Could it be that humanity was not to be underestimated? The Dominion had made a grave mistake. They had ignored the one rule that had kept countless empires in check. And now, they were learning the true cost of their arrogance. As Earth's human resistance continued to fight, the galaxy watched in stunned silence. The Zeldar, for the first time in their history, found themselves in a war they could not win. And it was all because they had underestimated humanity. They had ignored the warning, and now, they were paying the price. The fall of the Dominion had begun, and the question that now hung in the air was this: what happens when a species like humanity is pushed too far? And the galaxy was about to find out. Despite the overwhelming odds against them, humanity refused to go down quietly. The initial onslaught had been devastating, but humans were not a species to bow in the face of adversity. They didn't rely on sheer strength alone, but on their ability to adapt, to find a way through impossible situations. As the Zeldar forces tightened their grip around Earth, something unexpected began to unfold. The human resistance, though small and scattered, had started to come together. Aided by the determination of civilians, soldiers, scientists, and hackers, humanity began to strike back. They weren't just fighting to survive, they were fighting to adapt to the overwhelming might of the Zeldar. Every setback, every loss, fueled their resilience. The Dominion had made a grave miscalculation, and they would soon realize it. One of the first signs of humanity's response was the rise of a new kind of warfare, cyber warfare. The Zeldar, with their advanced fleet and technology, had assumed their AI systems were invincible. They were wrong. Humanity's greatest weapon was not just their physical might, but their ingenuity. Human hackers, operating in the shadows, infiltrated the Zeldar's computer systems, finding cracks in their seemingly impenetrable networks. The Dominion's fleet, made up of countless warships, was highly dependent on their AI for coordination and combat strategies. Without it, they were just mindless machines. What the Zeldar hadn't considered was the ingenuity of human cyber operatives, who had spent years perfecting their skills in secret. They didn't just hack into the system, they rewrote it. They inserted viruses and malicious code into the heart of the Dominion's fleet, turning their advanced warships into ticking time bombs. Within hours, human hackers had crippled the Dominion's coordination. Zeldar ships began to malfunction, turning on each other in an unpredictable frenzy. Ships that were once unstoppable were now crashing into one another, their weapons firing at random, targeting their own forces. The Zeldar had no way to respond. Their ships, once finely tuned and nearly flawless in their precision, were now a liability. But the human resistance wasn't just confined to cyberspace. On the ground, humanity's soldiers were holding their own. Against all odds, human forces, outnumbered and outgunned, were pushing back the Zeldar invaders. They fought in the streets of their cities, in the forests, and even underground in the ruins of their civilization. The Zeldar were not used to this kind of warfare. They were accustomed to overwhelming their enemies with brute force, not to fighting an enemy that refused to break. One of the most surprising aspects of humanity's response was their ability to rapidly adapt to the Zeldar's biological warfare. The Dominion had unleashed genetically engineered viruses designed to wipe out humanity, assuming that their advanced biology and engineering would guarantee success. The virus was fast-acting, deadly, and highly contagious. It was a weapon unlike anything humanity had ever faced. But humanity didn't panic. They didn't crumble under the pressure. Instead, they adapted. Human scientists, working tirelessly in labs across the globe, began analyzing the virus. They reverse-engineered the pathogen, finding ways to neutralize it before it could do any significant damage. Within days, a vaccine was developed, a vaccine that not only protected humans from the virus, but also created a resistance to the pathogen in future generations. The Zeldar thought they had humanity cornered, but they underestimated the adaptability of the human species. What was supposed to be humanity's downfall had instead become the turning point of the war. The very virus meant to annihilate them became the catalyst for their survival. The Zeldar's weapon turned against them, as the virus mutated within their own systems, spreading among the invaders. As the Zeldar's biological weapons failed, their morale began to crumble. Their soldiers, once fierce and unstoppable, found themselves falling ill at an alarming rate. Their own weapon, once considered a trump card, became their undoing. And still, humanity's resolve only grew stronger. They didn't just fight, they adapted to every new threat the Dominion threw at them. They didn't just survive, they found ways to turn the tide of battle in their favor. Meanwhile, the Zeldar leaders grew desperate. The war had turned against them faster than they could have ever imagined. Their fleets were in disarray, their soldiers were falling ill, and their biological weapons had failed. The Dominion, which had been certain of their victory, was now staring at defeat. The longer the war dragged on, the more they realized that humanity was not just fighting back, they were evolving with each passing day. They were learning faster than the Zeldar could adapt. The Zeldar had never faced an enemy like this before. In every battle, every skirmish, humanity found new ways to exploit their weaknesses. The Zeldar's once fearsome military machine was now disjointed, inefficient, and crippled by their own overconfidence. The humans didn't just strike from the front, they hit where it hurt the most: supply chains, communications, and even the heart of the Dominion's military strategy. Every small victory snowballed into something much larger. The Dominion, once so confident in their strength, now found themselves playing catch-up, constantly reacting to humanity's next move. But the most terrifying aspect for the Dominion was the way humanity adapted. The Zeldar had technology that was superior in every way, but humanity's ability to learn, to innovate, and to turn the tables on their enemies made them a far greater threat than the Dominion had ever realized. The humans didn't just fight wars, they transformed them. They took every loss, every setback, and used it to grow stronger. They didn't just survive, they evolved in real time. Human forces weren't just holding the line, they were turning the tide. Humanity's ability to adapt to the Zeldar's attacks became their greatest weapon. They didn't just learn from their mistakes, they became better, faster, and more resourceful with each new challenge. The Zeldar couldn't keep up. Their once imposing empire was slowly crumbling, and they had no idea how to stop it. In the face of all this, the Zeldar began to realize something horrifying: they had made a fatal mistake. They had underestimated humanity. They had assumed that their technology, their power, and their advanced biology would be enough to crush the humans. But it wasn't. Humanity had something the Zeldar could never have predicted: resilience. And with that realization came fear. The Zeldar had no idea what to do next. They had unleashed everything they had on humanity, and yet they were losing. The humans were adapting faster than they could destroy them. In every battle, every engagement, humanity seemed to come back stronger, more resourceful. The Dominion had bitten off more than they could chew, and now they were paying the price. And as the Dominion watched their forces falter, they couldn't help but ask themselves one chilling question: what happens when a species that never gives up faces a challenge it refuses to back down from? As the war raged on, the tide was slowly but steadily turning in humanity's favor. What had started as an invasion, an overwhelming assault by the Zeldar, had transformed into something neither side had anticipated. The Zeldar had believed the war would be over quickly, but it wasn't. The longer they fought, the more they realized that humanity was not just surviving, but winning. The Dominion, once confident of their technological superiority, now found themselves struggling to maintain control. The most unnerving part for the Zeldar was the realization that they were no longer in charge of the narrative. The humans had flipped the script. They had started to learn from every encounter, taking their losses and turning them into fuel for future victories. Their soldiers were becoming more skilled, their strategies more refined. What had been a desperate fight for survival was now becoming a fight for dominance. The humans weren't just defending their planet, they were taking the fight to the Zeldar. And the Zeldar didn't know how to respond. In space, human fleets, though still outnumbered, were becoming more and more effective. Their tactics were unconventional, unpredictable. The Zeldar, who had relied on overwhelming force and brute strength, found themselves caught off guard. Human warships, once easy targets, had become elusive, using guerrilla tactics to strike at the heart of the Dominion's fleets. They attacked supply lines, communication networks, and even the Zeldar's homeworld itself. Every mission, every battle, pushed the Zeldar further back, forcing them to retreat further into their own territory. The tide was turning, and the Zeldar could no longer ignore it. Meanwhile, the human scientists continued to work tirelessly on the ground. Despite the destruction, humanity's scientific community had never been more united. Laboratories that had once been focused on research for peaceful purposes now worked around the clock to develop new technologies, weapons, and defenses. The Zeldar had expected humanity to be overwhelmed by their initial biological attacks, but they hadn't accounted for humanity's ability to innovate. The virus that had been designed to wipe them out had been turned against the Zeldar, with human scientists creating an antidote that not only neutralized the pathogen but also adapted to new strains the Zeldar introduced. With each new biological weapon the Dominion unleashed, the humans adapted, growing stronger, more resistant, more resilient. But the most significant blow to the Dominion came not from the battlefield, nor from the labs, but from a small group of human operatives who managed to infiltrate the Zeldar's most secure facility, the heart of their empire. This group, made up of soldiers, hackers, and engineers, had only one objective: to strike at the very core of the Zeldar's power. For months, they had been planning, gathering information, and preparing for this mission. They understood that the only way to truly defeat the Dominion was to take away their ability to fight back, to cripple their leadership and their command structure. It wasn't enough to simply defeat their armies, they had to dismantle their entire war machine from within. The group of operatives infiltrated the Zeldar's central command center, located deep within their homeworld. They used a combination of stealth tactics, cyber warfare, and sabotage to bypass the Dominion's security and infiltrate the heart of their operations. Inside the facility, the humans planted viruses in the Zeldar's central systems, disabling their communication networks and rendering their warships useless. Their command structure, once an unbreakable fortress, was now in disarray. The Zeldar's leadership found themselves cut off from their forces, unable to coordinate their fleets, unable to issue commands. It was chaos. In the span of a few hours, the Dominion's most advanced technologies, those that had once been their greatest asset, became their most significant liability. The human operatives, using their advanced understanding of Zeldar technology, had turned the Dominion's own systems against them. As the human operatives completed their mission and transmitted the final codes to disable the Zeldar's weapons systems, the Dominion found themselves in a state of complete paralysis. Their fleet was stranded, their soldiers disoriented, and their leadership unable to act. The humans had broken them. In that moment, the Dominion realized that they had not just lost a war, they had lost their will to fight. Their forces, once feared across the galaxy, were now crippled by their own overconfidence, their own arrogance. Back on Earth, the resistance forces watched as the Zeldar's war effort began to collapse. The human operatives had pulled off the impossible. By striking at the heart of the Dominion's power, they had effectively neutralized the Zeldar's ability to continue the war. The Dominion's fleets, now disbanded and incapable of communication, scattered. Their soldiers, once formidable, were now confused and directionless. The invincible empire had been brought to its knees, not by superior force, but by human cunning and adaptability. The battle wasn't over, but the war had already been decided. The humans had won. For the first time in the history of the galaxy, a species that had been underestimated, ridiculed, and considered insignificant had defeated one of the most powerful empires in existence. And they had done so not with overwhelming strength, but with determination, innovation, and sheer willpower. The Zeldar had come to Earth expecting an easy conquest, but what they found instead was humanity, a species that refused to bow, refused to break, and refused to back down. As the Zeldar retreated into the depths of space, nursing their wounds and licking their pride, they were left with one undeniable truth: they had underestimated humanity. And they had paid the price for it. The Elder's warning had been ignored, and now the galaxy would never forget the lesson that had been learned at the cost of the Dominion's empire. Humanity had shown the universe that they were a force to be reckoned with, and the repercussions of that lesson would echo throughout the stars for centuries to come. The Zeldar were no longer a threat. The humans had proven that when you challenge humanity, you do not just face their strength, you face their unbreakable will to survive, adapt, and ultimately, win. In the end, the war was not just a victory for Earth, it was a victory for every species that had ever been underestimated, every race that had ever been disregarded, and every individual who had ever been told they were not strong enough to overcome the odds. Humanity had done the impossible, and now the galaxy would know the truth: never challenge humanity. The victory over the Dominion of Zeldar marked a turning point for humanity. It wasn't just the end of an invasion, but the beginning of a new chapter in the galaxy's history. The Dominion had crumbled under the weight of their own arrogance, and humanity had emerged as the unexpected victor. But the story didn't end with their retreat, it was only the beginning of the consequences the Zeldar would face. The defeat was not a one-time lesson, it was the start of a new understanding in the galaxy: humanity was not a species to be trifled with. After the war, the Elders, the ancient and wise beings who had set the rule never challenge humanity, finally intervened. They had watched from the shadows as the war unfolded, their long-lived wisdom seeing the rise of humanity's unexpected power. But even they hadn't fully grasped the depth of humanity's resilience, adaptability, and sheer will to survive. They knew humanity was a force, but they hadn't expected it to be an unstoppable one. And now, they were forced to reckon with that reality. The Elders appeared before the remnants of the Dominion, who had now been reduced to a shattered empire. They were no longer the proud, war-hardened species that had once ruled with an iron fist. They were broken, their fleets in disarray, their soldiers scattered, and their leadership in ruins. The Dominion had been brought to its knees, not by a superior force, but by a species that had adapted and refused to give up. And that, the Elders realized, was humanity's greatest strength. The Elders' message to the remnants of the Dominion was simple: now you understand why we had that rule. The Dominion had ignored the warning, thinking themselves above it. They had believed that their technological superiority and military might made them invincible. But they had underestimated one fundamental aspect of humanity: the refusal to surrender. Humans did not just fight battles, they evolved through them. They learned from their mistakes, adapted to the odds, and grew stronger with each setback. The Dominion had failed to grasp the true nature of humanity, and now they had paid the price for that arrogance. The Zeldar leadership, once so certain of their victory, now understood the gravity of their mistake. They had tried to conquer Earth with superior technology and overwhelming force. What they had not accounted for was humanity's ability to turn every disadvantage into an advantage. The biological weapons that were meant to wipe out humanity had been neutralized. The AI systems that the Dominion relied on for control had been hijacked. The war, which was meant to be a one-sided conflict, had turned into a fight that the Dominion couldn't win. The Zeldar had thought they were in control, but in reality, they had been playing a losing game from the start. In the aftermath of the war, the galaxy began to take notice. Other civilizations, once skeptical of humanity's place among the stars, started to reevaluate their stance. The Zeldar had been defeated, but the implications of that defeat were far-reaching. If humanity could defeat a species as powerful as the Dominion, what other challenges could they overcome? The galaxy had witnessed a lesson in humility, one that would echo throughout the stars for centuries. The defeated Dominion, having realized their miscalculations, now faced the harsh reality of their downfall. The remnants of their once great empire were scattered across the galaxy. Their fleets lay in ruins, their soldiers were demoralized, and their leadership had fractured. The Zeldar, once the dominant force in the galaxy, now had to pick up the pieces of their shattered existence. The cost of their arrogance was immeasurable, and their once proud civilization would never be the same. But it wasn't just the Dominion that had learned a valuable lesson. The galaxy itself had been forced to confront the truth: humanity was not just a species to be ignored. The Elders had been right all along: never challenge humanity. Those who had once underestimated Earth now looked at the human race with a mixture of fear and respect. The galaxy had been given a glimpse of humanity's true potential, and it was a potential that could no longer be ignored. For humanity, the victory over the Zeldar was not just a battle won, it was a statement to the galaxy. It was a declaration that they would not be underestimated, that they would not be conquered. They had proven that, when pushed to the brink, humanity would rise, adapt, and find a way to overcome even the most impossible odds. The Zeldar had thought they could crush Earth with their advanced technology and overwhelming force, but in the end, it was humanity's will that had proved to be the most powerful force in the galaxy. As the years passed, humanity's reputation continued to grow. Other species, once skeptical of Earth's place in the galactic community, now sought alliances with humans. The Zeldar, having been brought to the brink of extinction, withdrew into the shadows of their crumbling empire, while humanity began to rebuild. They didn't just rebuild their cities, they rebuilt their strength, their resolve, and their place in the stars. Humanity's victory over the Dominion was a turning point not only for Earth but for the galaxy as a whole. It was a victory that sent ripples through every corner of space, forcing every species to reconsider their assumptions about the human race. The galaxy was no longer the same. The events of the war had left a permanent mark, a reminder that humanity was not a species to be underestimated. The Elders, who had once warned the galaxy of the dangers of challenging humanity, now stood as witnesses to that truth. The final lesson of the war was clear: humanity had not just survived, they had conquered their challenges, and in doing so, they had proven to the universe that no matter the odds, no matter the enemy, they would never be broken. They would never back down. And in the end, that was what made humanity truly unstoppable. The Zeldar had learned their lesson too late. The Elders had watched it unfold, and now the galaxy was left with the undeniable truth: humanity had proven that the greatest weapon wasn't technology, power, or sheer numbers, it was the relentless spirit to survive, to adapt, and to evolve. The galaxy would never forget the lesson learned at the hands of Earth's greatest warriors, and humanity's place among the stars was secured for generations to come. The Elders had been right about one thing: never challenge humanity. And now, the entire galaxy understood why.